Hello, hello. Welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a yarny podcast where we're going to just chat about all things yarn. I am Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, and welcome to episode 1. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited to dive in to this casual podcast format here and share a little bit on a regular basis about what I'm up to, what I'm loving, thoughts on life. But most importantly, I really want to answer some of your questions about yarn and crochet and maybe even a little knitting. If you didn't know that about me, I am a knitter too. And so let's talk about maybe myself. How about? If you have never met me before, my name is Sarah Korth. I am a crochet designer and teacher. I always say that when I was growing up, I always knew I wanted to be two things, a mom and a teacher. I am a mom. I have two boys who are mid-elementary school range, which is like one of my favorites. They are like self-sufficient but still silly and like to have fun and cuddle, which is wonderful. And then a teacher. I went to college and earned my music education degree and taught music in elementary school for 8 years. And that is my passion. When I had my first son, I knew that I didn't want to divide my energy between my children and other people's children. And so I was blessed enough to be able to stay home with him. And eventually I started uh, actually, it started as a knitting business. I started making hats and accessories and selling them just as a little something for myself. Working with my hands was like my way to unwind, but one person can only have so many hats, so I started selling them. And eventually that turned into designing, and that has turned into teaching, which I feel so blessed by because I've always wanted to teach. And so now I get to marry my passion of yarn craft and my passion of teaching into one thing. And it just makes me so happy. So thank you for being here to allow me to teach so that I can marry my passions like that. It is just such a blessing to me. All right, so as I said, this podcast is going to be casual. I'm just going to bring to you thoughts that are on my mind, purchases I've made, projects I'm working on, things that I'm loving, maybe tips and tricks. But I also want to do two big things with this podcast. And one is that I want to highlight other makers and small businesses. If you've watched my Meet the Maker series, you know that I have a passion for meeting people and supporting other great people and their businesses. And so I'm going to take this podcast as an opportunity to share with you not only some yarny things, but some other crafty people or businesses that I love. So let's try that. The first thing I want to show you is if you don't know me, I love coffee. I will probably almost always have a cup of coffee nearby. I drink it year round. And I have learned about myself that the only thing that makes drinking a good cup of coffee better is drinking it out of a handmade mug. I have abandoned almost all of my store-bought mugs for handmade mugs because they really are just that great. So I'm going to show you my handmade mug. Brian got it for me for Christmas, my husband, and it says, "I need a huge amount of yarn." I don't disagree with that. I feel strongly. I do need a huge amount of yarn. And then he bought it at my local yarn shop, which is Casting On, and you can see their logo right there too. And I'll have to take a picture when I'm done drinking my cup of coffee here because the inside of the mug is gorgeous and it makes me happy. Like every time I take a sip, it like reveals a little more of the gorgeousness on the inside, which I love. I want you, if you so desire, to be able to support these makers too. So please check out the show notes in the description, and I'll have links to all of the things that I talk about. So I will link the ceramicist, I'm like creator, designer, the ceramicist who makes this mug is a very talented and local to me, and their shop is Cheeky Ceramics, which is amazing. So I will put a link so that you can go check out mugs and all sorts of cute things. Oh, one of the things that they do that's amazing if you love your pets as much as I do, they make memorial mugs that have like a picture of a pet. A lot of times she does them for people whose pets have passed away. Amazingly talented, and what a special gift to give to someone else or yourself. So, long story short, highly recommend. Great for drinking out of. Excellent artist. Have held up very well. So check out Cheeky Ceramics. Another local artist that I'm obsessed with is I recently discovered these earrings. Aren't they amazing? They're like all bright and rainbowy, and then they've got the rainbow on them. I really love them. Polymer clay earrings, if you've never worn them, are super lightweight. They're lovely. This is another local artist who I got to meet in person. She is just sweet as can be. Always, I mean, it only makes it better when you can support an artist who's just a wonderful person as well, right? So she is at P's and Q's Creative Design. I'll put her information below too. Check out her earrings. They're very reasonably priced and super, super cute. I am wearing my Braids and Bobbles Shawlette. So if you are loving the texture on this one, I recently remade it in new yarn. My original one is like right over here in these fun neons, but I remade it in some yarn that I have that I loved, and it's been like my go-to wear recently because it's just been it's been not lovely outside. So I've been keeping something very cozy around my neck all the time. Let's see, I'm going to turn on my tablet here because I made notes so that I would know what we're going to talk about here. Okay, so one of my goals then is to highlight small businesses and things that I love for you to go check them out. So check out the description and all these videos. I will make sure to put in all the links so that you can easily check out all these things. And I'll include a link to my Braids and Bobble Shawlette if you're like, ooh, maybe I want to make one of those too. All right, so I want to talk a little bit now about what I've been doing, some things that I've purchased. I've had some people say, like, I really want to go on a yarn diet. I have, I'm sorry, Weston, my Australian Shepherd mix, he's sleeping on the floor right over there. And he just, so if you can hear that, it's just him. He's hanging out with us. Someday I'm sure he'll try to climb up on my lap while I do this. It's fine. So I want to share with you first some yarn that I purchased because yarn diet, well, no diet and I are really friendly, let's be honest, but yarn diets, I have no need for such things. Though I have been trying to pull from my stash a little bit more, which has been fun. I tend to hold yarn that I buy without a purpose as like really precious, and like I just set it up on my shelf and I like look at it and think, that's so pretty. I couldn't possibly use it for anything because then it would be used. which is silly. So I've been really enjoying taking some of my yarn. This was made out of 2 skeins that I had been holding as precious. And now I'm wearing them, which is even more precious because I don't only see them when I go to my yarn shelf. I like put it on my body and take it out and let other people see how gorgeous it is and have memories of my good friend who gifted me one of the skeins. And now I think of her every time I put it on. So I am both purchasing yarn and using some of my stash a little bit. So I have been in kind of like a shawl mood, if I'm going to be real honest. I've had all the inspiration for all the shawls. I've been wanting to wear all the shawls. When I look in my wardrobe of things to put on, and I almost always wear some sort of handmade item, I'm always like, you know what I really need? A different shawl. So I've been inspired to make some shawls. That's one of the things that I'm working on. But as I was inspired to design a shawl, I just happened to be flipping through Instagram and I saw this. Let me see. It's really blown out. This is so hard to capture. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to edit these videos. I want them to be casual and not like overly edited. But when I have some things like this that the video isn't doing it justice, or like I'm showing you a pattern that isn't complete, I'm going to try to put a picture. I'm not going to try. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put a picture of the yarn dyer's picture here because she takes great pictures of her yarn, and so that you can see like it done real good justice here. It's gorgeous. It's got hot pink, this really bright like kind of burnt orangey colors in there, and some lighter pinks, and I saw that and I said, yes, please, I need a shawl out of that. And so I reached out to Tanya. Tanya and I, this is cornbread and honey yarn. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can just go straight to Tanya's website and check out her yarn. And I'll list the colorways that I'm showing you so that if you are like, I need that exact colorway as well, you won't have to like try to figure it out or be unsure about it. So Cornbread and Honey is the yarn company. Tanya is the dyer, and she is lovely. She and I actually used to live really close together, but only started like more seriously chit-chatting after I moved away from Ohio. So I wish I had gotten to know her a little better when we could have actually met up in person. But she is a lovely person. So I reached out to Tanya and I said, I saw this. I'm obsessed. I need a coordinating color. Will you dye me a coordinating color? And she said, yes, absolutely. And God bless her. She is so lovely. She dyed me, I think it was 5 options to go with this. Like I said, I saw a skein and I said, I really am drawn to, it's like a maroony color and like a purpley color. What do you think? She dyed me 5 options. I fell in love. I fell in love with all of them now that I'm thinking about it. This got a little out of hand, I'm not gonna lie. So I fell in love with 2 options and I said, give me a full skein. So this was the maroony option, which is not coming up as dark or as rich. Again, I'll put a picture up. And the purpley option. Obsessed. But then I was like, so those little mini skeins you dyed up, what about those? And so I grabbed some of those too. I was like, those would make like a really pretty fade. So I don't have a plan for those, but I bought them anyways. So I am currently working on a shawl in this colorway. The main body is going to be this colorway, and then there's going to be a pretty edge. And I let my Instagram vote, and they chose the purple. So the pretty edge is going to be in the purple, and I'm going to put this guy away for something else that I'm sure I will find the perfect use for him. And I'm going to use, I bought 2 skeins of this and I only used 1 for my shawl. So maybe these 2 will become something later on down the road. I don't know. We'll see. So, love these. These are amazing. You should check out Tanya and her gorgeous yarn. Highly, highly, highly recommend. All right. The other thing that I've been obsessed with recently is a new hat that I made. And it's, now I'm like, where do I put these? It's new-ish, new adjacent. I redesigned, or I re-released my Astoria hat pattern. I wanted to teach a class with it. It was one of the very first patterns I ever designed, and it hadn't been tech edited. So I was like, now's the time. I'm going to teach a class with it at my local yarn shop, which if you're local to me, come join us sometime. We have a lot of fun. And we learn a lot. And everybody went home with a finished hat. And now I lost my train of thought. Okay. Ooh, I remember. So I thought now's the perfect time. I'm going to teach a class with it. I'm going to remake the samples, and I'm going to have it tech edited, and then it'll be like updated and all good to go. So I started making my samples. The hat has 4 variations in one pattern. I'm really loving this pattern more and more. So it started with this variation, which has the lovely braided top and bottom, and then it has a variation to take this and like cinch it together and make it a bow, which is lots of fun. So you have the fold up brim that is the same texture on both sides, or you have a brimless, which is this guy, or I added a 4th variation, which is a ribbed brim. And look at me, I'm not even hiding the fact that I have it woven in my hands on this. It's fine. So a ribbed brim version. So I updated it by adding the ribbed brim version. So now there's the folded brim, the bow brim, the brimless, and the ribbed brim version, because we need all the options always. So this hat is bringing me so much joy right now. I was just double checking to make sure I have the yarn label. I'm going to tell you what it is. So this was a skein that I purchased for myself from a yarn dyer 2 Christmases ago. Anybody else buy their own Christmas presents? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. So I purchased 2 skeins of her yarn for myself at Christmas time, and it had been one of those things, like, I had no plan. It was just pretty. I wanted it. She was having a Black Friday sale or something. So I purchased it, and when I started redoing this hat, I was like, yes, please. I wanted yarns that kind of coordinated together, and like those have the same colors in it. This is a little more neutral, but goes well with them. So I was like, yes, this is the one. This hat has been bringing me so much joy because, A, look at that yarn. It's just so pretty. But B, I made the brimless slouchy version of this. And so I wear it slouchy. So cute. I wear it, if it's cold, I fold the brim up so that you can see the right side of the hat and the wrong side, which is so much fun. And then I also wear it inside out because that texture is so pretty. And it changes up how the yarn shows a little bit. It's fun. So then I also wear it slouchy inside out, and I fold up the brim and wear it inside out because it's just that much fun. I'm obsessed with it. So I say that I bring this hat up to your... The reason I bring this hat up is because it's making me so happy right now. I don't know about you and the weather you're having at your house right now, but like, I'm to the point of the year where I'm kind of over winter, right? Winter we've had a good time. You can go now. But then we got 14 inches of snow last weekend. 14 inches. So winter's not going away. So I've decided that the thing that is saving the fact that winter is not going away is that I have a fun new hat to wear. So if you're like me and you're like, I really wish that spring would come, but spring's like, meh, I don't want to. I highly recommend picking out a skein of yarn that you've been hanging on to or that you purchased without a purpose. This is worsted weight. I guess I should let you know that. And making yourself a new hat that you really love so that even when you have to go out in the cold and snow, you can say, at least I have a pretty fun new hat to wear. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's my little tidbit of advice for getting through the last gray sadness of winter. Buy some fun yarn, make yourself a hat. Okay, so since this is my first episode, I said one of the things I really want to do is answer some questions. And to do. But since this is my first episode, I have not given you all an opportunity to ask me questions. So I wanted to talk about some questions that some of my students at the local yarn shop have asked me. And I think they're great questions and they're related to my hats. Oh, wait, let's back up. I'll put this all in the show notes, but let me tell you real quick the yarns that I made my hats in. So this is by Fox and Hare Creations. Her label says Lucid Yarns. I looked her up after I finished making my hat and was obsessed with it and was like, I might need more of this. And her shop was closed and I was so sad. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, not being creepy, but I really love your yarn. And are you coming back? Because several, even kind of bigger names have gone out of business recently. And she said, yes, I am. So go follow her. I believe she's Fox and Hare Creations on Instagram. I'll put the links to all the things below. This colorway is called Supernova. I hope she comes back with this because I would love to make a matching cowl. And then this, can you guess? Can you guess what yarn company this is? This is their classic Malabrigo. Malabrigo. It's their Rios yarn, which is their worsted weight, and the colorway is Illusion 842. So real pretty neutral kind of stone color with the browns and the beiges and the purples and all the things. So fun. And then I'm obsessed with this color. I actually asked my local yarn shop owner, I was like, I know I bought this from you a long time ago. Do you still have it? And she was like, no, but I can order more. And I was like, please do. This is Plymouth Select Superwash Merino, and it is in color 90. No name, just 90. Love it. It's gorgeous. So I can't wait to make more out of that when Sarah gets more yarn in. By the way, my local yarn shop owner, also named Sarah. So sometimes I'm talking about myself, sometimes I'm talking about her. Okay, so let's dive into hat questions. Actually, before we dive into hat questions, I want to say, if you have a question about yarn, about me, about designing, about what it looks like to be a crochet designer and teacher and mom and dog mom, if you have questions about my dog, he's adorable, and he's blind, which makes people are often curious about because, I mean, it's a little different. There is a link in the show notes to a Google form to type in your questions. Please put your questions in there. It's going to help me compile all of them and organize what have I answered, what have I not answered, and all of that good stuff. So please, if you want your question answered in a podcast, check that out and submit your question so that I'll have more things to talk about next time. And like I said, my passion is teaching, and I can't wait to share my knowledge with you. So, hat questions. A local lady who was new-ish to crochet, we were just chit-chatting at a Yarny social time one time, and she was just like, what is up with crocheted hats? And I was like, what is up with crocheted hats? Let's talk about it. So she had a couple really great questions that I'm going to share my answers with you here to start off with. So her first, I guess I should say, one of her questions was, why are crochet hats square? And I thought that is such a great question, because I think a lot of people look at a flat lay of a crochet hat and think it's just not as appealing. We're often comparing, either consciously or subconsciously, we're comparing what we're creating to what we buy in the store. And frankly, crochet hats do not have the same shape as a hat you buy in the store. So I brought, what was that? Oh, heard a thunk. I brought a knitted hat that I made and a crochet hat that I made to compare. So this is my knitted hat, and you can see this is what you would expect when you buy in the store, right? It's kind of a rectangle, right? It's longer and narrower. And then here's my crocheted hat. It looks like a square, right? It's about the same distance from the tip of the hat to the bottom of the hat as it is a diameter across the hat. And here's why. It's all about the fabric. Knitted hats have a ton of stretch. If you knit, you can think about the way that you create the fabric, especially when it's all just knit stitches like this, or even when it's all just, when you're not working stitches together or making fancy stitches, just the knit and purl stitches. They're all just loops over your needle. And so they have a lot of give widthwise, because you can pull those loops and it flattens the stitches height-wise and allows them to stretch widthwise. But if you think about the way that you form a crochet stitch, you are pulling a loop of yarn through the center of your loops. So those stitches and the way that they're formed don't allow them the same amount of width stretch. It just it just doesn't stretch as much because of how the stitches are formed. Tail. I made this hat over a year ago. It's fine. So the way that the stitches are formed affect the stretch of the hat. And so because of that, you as a knit pattern, you can rely on the stretchiness of the fabric to make it fit people's head better. You can make sorry, I have fuzz by my eye. You can make a hat that has an 18, 17, 16-inch circumference, and if your hat stretches enough side to side, it'll still fit a 20, 22, 23-inch circumference head, which is kind of like what we shoot for usually. That's usually like kind of your average-ish adult head size. So you know that the stretch of the knit fabric allows you to work a narrower hat and still have it fit a bigger head. But when you don't have a lot of stretch around, you need to make your actual fabric. You can't rely on it stretching to fit. So you have to make your actual fabric fit around. So if this hat, this is just like spitballing a little bit, but if this hat is 18 inches around and it's got a lot of stretch to it, and it can fit a 23-inch head, then it's 18-inch circumference. If this hat that doesn't have a lot of stretch needs to fit that same 20-inch circumference, I'm going to make it easy on myself, it needs to be a 20-inch circumference or a 9-inch or 10-inch diameter. I can do math, it's fine. So if it has very little or no stretch in it, I need the circumference of the hat to just be the circumference of the head, whereas this can be smaller than the circumference and I can rely on the stretch of the fabric. Hat size averages about 9 inches. So you don't usually need your hat to stretch up and down. You're stretching side to side. So you're probably going to do a 9-inch height in this one and a 9-inch height in this one. So you're talking 8 maybe inches across and 9 inches tall for a fitted hat, not for a slouchy hat. So potentially even more. And so that's a rectangle. But if you need your circumference to be 10 inches or to be 20 inches, then this distance needs to be 10 and this is 9, which ends up making it look a lot more squat and square. And I think people think, well, when I put that on my head, it's going to look funny. But really, it doesn't. It just doesn't stretch as much around, but it still fits nicely on the top of your head then, if that makes sense. So that is why crocheted hats are squares and not tall rectangles like a knitted hat. Now, the other question that I got was, why is it so stinking hard to get a crochet hat to fit your head and not as hard to get a knitting hat to fit your head? And two things. One, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It depends a lot on the stitch, but it all really goes back to the stretch factor. If a knit hat, is designed to fit a 20-inch head, and you have a 24-inch head, and it's got real good stretch widthwise, you're probably still going to be fine wearing that hat, even if your head is a little bigger or a little smaller. But if you've got a crocheted stitch that's pretty inflexible, then you cannot make a 20-inch hat fit a 24-inch head without feeling really tight. So there's less give to it. So the same reason that the hat is more square is the reason why it's harder to fit. So I'm gonna tell you what you don't want to hear. It's all about the gauge, friends. And with a crochet hat, gauge is more important. If you are off on your gauge and you end up making your hat smaller, which if you are a beginning crocheter, let me tell you, I'm going to give it an 8 times out of 10. I was going to say 9, but 8 times out of 10, you crochet tight as you start off. And what that means is if all your stitches are tighter, your gauge is smaller and your whole hat is going to end up smaller, and you're going to be like, or like giving it to your grandkid or neighbor kid down the street because it ends up fitting their head and not yours. And without that give, it's just not going to fit on your head. So check your gauge. Check your gauge. I know people, you're going to, I feel you groaning through the camera, but if you've been having trouble getting your hats to fit, your crochet hats to fit, it's because they don't have the give and flexibility of a knit hat, and you need to be more spot on with your gauge. You don't have to be exact, but you need to be more spot on with your gauge. So check the gauge. If you don't know what gauge is, I have a whole series of blog posts and videos on it that I think you will find very helpful, as well as an ebook. I'm going to link all those down in the show notes too, so you can check those out if you're interested. And but man, gauge. You want to be close, at least, to gauge on a hat, or it could end up fitting a giant or a baby instead of you. So I hope that's helpful. I would love to know if you have had trouble fitting hats, if you have tips about getting hats to fit, or other questions about hats. Be sure, if you want your question answered in a future episode, that you that you use the form, fill out the form, so that I can have that all together. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this first episode. Do all the YouTubey things, please. Subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like this video, share it with a friend. That would mean so much to me. Send it to a friend who's also been like, those stinking hats, or I love beautiful yarn, or I would like to support small creative businesses. Share it with them. That would mean the world to me, and hopefully they find something helpful too. Check out the description for all the links, and a link to my newsletter if you want to sign up, so you don't miss out on all the things, and so that you get the very best discounts. Cheers! Thank you for joining me, and happy crafting.